Yeah, 45. Okay.
Okay. Our last regular speaker before the hyper talks is François from Nerial. I just asked him how to pronounce it. Please say hi.
Hello. Hello, so my name is François Alliot. I'm the founder of Nerial. And I'm going to talk to you about the story of our studio. So we made this game called Rings, which you probably heard of, I hope. and I'm going to explain a bit the project before Rings and the project after Rings. The idea is, the main idea behind this title, Feed the Loop, is that I want to explain how repetition and maybe variations around loops and things that are continuously turning around each other are actually it's not something that's so bad, actually. And maybe instead of exploring a wide range of different games, it's interesting to focus on one and use it as a way to explore different things. And our variations and mutations of games are really worthy of your time. So, and that's why I call this Feed the Loop. So we started Nerial with my wife Tamara, who is in the room, around 6 years ago, and we turned it into a little machine that makes games, so a loop in itself, so, which make games with a certain regularity and a certain success for now, this is something we wanted to do both on the side of the production, like how we make the games, it's in itself a loop, and the games themselves are using loops, and I will try to explain why. This is all in our logo, Nerial, which is Ouroboros, so that's the snake that eats its own tail, like the symbol, the Egyptian symbol, which is a very strong symbol that we use here. So I'm going to start talking about the setting up the loop, how we started and how we ended up on Rings. First, we made a game called Devouring Stars, which is me doing everything you shouldn't do as an indie. So spend 5 years on your own games in your spare time, never finish anything, starting to make things that go in every direction, and while dreaming about indie success and making it, you know. So the best thing we did about Devouring Stars was to abandon it. So. That's really, yeah, I really say that seriously because it was a bit of a very difficult thing to say, now we need to stop this game and start something new. But it's something that's that was very necessary because it was not going anywhere. And recognize this is something that was very important for the next games. Then we did Singular, which is the first game we finished. That's a good thing, and that's so that's a very nice game around the feeling of popping bubble paper. We sold 200 copies of this, so thanks Mom, Dad, and the extensive family. That's our first encounter with the indie scene. So I always remember showing this game at Radius Festival in London with Tamara, actually. First time we were in London, 2 months after moving in. We went to this festival showing our game next to Rami, showing Nuclear Throne. So I was completely Star Trek, and that was a very nice welcoming in the indie family. We start discussing with a lot of people, and we kept discussing with a lot of people, and that really informed our decision throughout the development of the next games. Then we did a game called Magic Shot. So Magic Shot is a weird game. Well, there's sound, but you don't mind the sound. So it's a French billiard game, but generated. So it's a sort of psychedelic experience around billiards. So because why not? And it's a very first game that used loop and generated content at its core. Okay, and that because what you see is that in this system, so basically we generate the shape of the tape depending on a lot of input that I will not describe, but it's the first thing we did like this. It's also our first work with Arnaud de Bock, who is the artist of the Rings series. So that was our first collaboration together. So you see, at each game, we kept something from the previous game. Like we learned something from the previous experience that we used in the next game, while and keeping it short. So no more 5 years project. This is 6 months. Singular was 6 months, and this one, Devouring Stars, was around. Maybe 9 months. That was a bit more complicated. So Devouring Stars is a procedurally generated RPG game. Don't try to do that. It's a bad idea. So because we were not afraid of anything, so we decided to make a generated RPG. It's a very pretty game, but it's not a great game, to be honest. But it was also a very interesting, as you see, we're looking at our way to use generated content outside of the normal box you use it. So not just to build things, but also to try new forms of gameplay. And that's sort of appear particularly in Passengers, because Passengers, so that's a game about migrants. So you play a migrant smuggler bringing people to Europe, and basically around the idea that we wanted, it was 2015, and we wanted to show that the wave of migrants is not just like an uniform blob of people just coming here, but it's actually individuals, and we wanted to tell individual stories made up. So that's an algorithm who brings by a randomly generated story of Damien, is a doctor dreaming and smiling largely. He's made a long journey. He wants to reach Barcelona. So we made up these stories, but they tell stories of individual people, and that's the first thing we tried to use loops to tell stories. So that's Passengers, and that's a very interesting game. And after that, we made Rings. So Rings, that's our unicorn, our completely unexpected breakthrough game. We sold 2.5 million copies of Rings, and 4 million if you include the follow-up games. Majesty and Game of Thrones. So it's a game that's also a loop in itself, because in this game you play a king. So I don't know if you know, but Ranks is Tinder, is middle-aged Tinder. So basically you are a king, you answer your advisor by swiping left or right, which has a consequence on your kingdom. So that's the first loop, the loop of making the decisions, which is included in another loop, which is the reign. So you die at some point, and then you go to the next reign in the dynasty. So you carry on the loop. It's like a second loop, and then there's a third loop, which is like the overall story of reigns and the devil and so on and so forth. So and this loop, made of loops, if you want, sort of started something at Nerial that sort of bring fruit to nowadays, and I will try to explain how we fed the loop. So when you're lucky to have a success like Rings, there are generally two possibilities. As an indie, which is what most indie will do, is I'm free to do whatever I want for a while because I got money, so let's go crazy and do something else. And I'm going to exploit this concept to death, just make a lot of money. With Ranks, we are very lucky to be in a third position, if you want, because in a way, we sort of managed to do something else. So try explore new things while exploiting the concept to death, if you want. So that's possible because Ranks has two important aspects which are linked to its very simplistic gameplay, just swiping left and right. First, that concept adapts very well to all sorts of contexts, including Game of Thrones, as we saw. That's the first thing. The second thing is still difficult to reproduce or to copy it easily. It's like because we don't have a lot of competition actually, so we have a few people who try to copy us, but there's still a very strong Ranks mark, if you want, and we kept exploiting it. It's difficult to copy it because of two things. First, it's a written game, so it's a narrative game, so it's difficult to write a copy, so except if you just copy the text, which happened to us also. But it's difficult to do that, and also the systems behind Ranks are a bit complex. It's not as simple as it looks. Like the balancing act that's done behind the scene by the system. Basically, you got like the state of the kingdom, and each decision of the king will affect the state of the kingdom in many different ways. Not just the 4 values that you got at the top of the screen, but in a lot of different ways. And this is not a classic branching narrative game, so that's a bit unusual, and so that's why it's difficult to redo. So we did Ranks the Majesty. So the follow-up of Ranks, because of this third possibility we had, was not Ranks 2, nor another game. It was Ranks the Majesty, which is, I'm very proud of this game because it's a very super feminist game we made with Lee Alexander, who wrote the game with us. Yeah, we did it because we could, and because I was a bit upset because Ranks was about kings, and it was a bit difficult to bring the queen in Ranks. At the time, I didn't know how to. It's a very poor excuse, but I didn't know how to put genders very well in the game because you got like 1,000 cards, and each of them refer to the king or the king. So we had to do a lot of tweaks to make that available in Ranks Game of Thrones. So for Ranks a Majesty, we decided to just do the queen, okay? And that's something our players wanted, and that's something that really worked. And I'm very happy about that because it was not just about making a king game. It's a bit boring. And very interesting also because through Lee Alexander and our work, we explored a completely different range of narratives and themes and stories, which was not in Ranks 1, and I'm very happy about that because the writing in Ranks the Majesty is actually much more complex, has a lot more depth because the position of the queen is not the position of the king. It's not a pure play on cliche and I am the guy who got the power. It's not as easy. You have to manage the power. It's more difficult. So I'm very happy about this game and its success. And we sold around I don't know 700,000 copies of this. So that's quite good for a feminist game. Then you got Ranks Game of Thrones because I mean, if we do license, why not try the best one? And it worked. They said yes. Yeah, I mean, HBO just accepted to do this, so why not? And it was also another interesting thing to do, a very crazy thing to do, a very crazy project. So with Tamara, we spent very stressful months, make sure the game was released on time and on budget, but it was still very interesting thing to do. So all these games use the same core mechanic, but they explore their concept in very different ways. Okay. So I'll try to accelerate. So the main point about this idea of the third road we followed is that first we stayed in D. We kept the same structure for every game, which is basically 3 to 4 people making the game for 9 months. Okay, so that's the case for Ranks, that's the case for Ranks the Majesty, and that's the case for Ranks Game of Thrones. So it's not 20 people. It's just us 3 plus, yeah, maybe 30 people at HBO, but no, okay, I'm joking, they're not that many. Be consistent, we kept the core mechanic, we kept the core concept, but we go further. We go a bit further every time. Like Her Majesty is a development compared to Reigns. Game of Thrones is also a development compared to Reigns and Reigns Her Majesty. Yeah, there's more intricacy, there's more cards, there's a lot of different work on the concept, on the writing, more specific mechanics like the inventory in Reigns Her Majesty, the selection in Game of Thrones. So we try to go further every time. One important point also is that because of this, we manage to explore different grounds. Like we keep our core in identity, but we explore new grounds. We go every time we meet new player. Every time we bring like Game of Thrones, we touch Game of Thrones fans, and they know about Reigns because of this. And it has a very interesting effect for an indie, which is that basically each game is used to promote the others. Like so, this is the sales of Reigns throughout the period where we release Reigns Her Majesty and Reigns Game of Thrones. And every time we release a new game, we basically resell the others. That's why you got 2.5 million of Reigns, is because it was pushed by the other games. Thank you. So now we are at the point, basically, where people are interested in our little concept and start to ask, but what do you want to do with it? If we think investors and classic way to grow your business, is basically the basic idea is to do Reigns but bigger, like a Reigns free-to-play with weekly updates, a big company with 20 people and more dollars for everything. So that's a road that's offered to us, but we don't really want to do that. We want to keep basically the machine running and keep the loop turning. So for us, that's three different things. So there's we want to bring variations basically to our core concept. First, by doing other Reigns, so variants of settings, variants of tone, but the similar mechanics. Reigns the Council, which is our board game that we kickstarted last month, which is another variations around the core concept. So you had the talk from Bruno this morning, Bruno Feduti, who is the writer of this with Hervé Marly. But every time we want to keep things small, like 2-3 people. The core team is 2-3 people, and they do something over 9 months, generally. And also other games, so variants of mechanics, but we keep the same size of team and the same way to make the games, and that's basically what we try to achieve. So this interest of loops into loops and a way you repeat yourself doesn't come from nowhere. Of course, when you think about repetition and just doing the same thing over and over, you think a bit like in modern times, that's the big machine just crushes the people and that's boredom, if you want. It's very annoying to just go to work every day to do the same stupid function and over, and that's actually excruciatingly annoying. But our way to do repetition and variation is not like that. It's much more like an expedition. It's like every time we make a Reigns game, we're not just like doing the same thing over and over. It's more like we're going on an exploration. Like we're going to visit the Antarctic, for example. So every day it's white. You got wind. You got a few penguins, but not many. So it's always the same thing, but it always has a very slight variation in light, in the way the wind blows, in where you go at the end of the day. So you always go somewhere if you want, and that's more what we're doing with Nerial. This is something that's also very present in literature. So I invite you to look at the work from the Oulipo, for example, the Au revoir of littérature poétique, like in Exercice de style from Queneau. So Queneau does just takes the same events and repeats them over and over with different style. So it's always a guy going after his bus and coming on the bus and looking at people fighting. So it's the same series of events, but repeated over and over, and with each time it brings variation, a different structure, a variation of style, of length, of point of view, which makes the overall structure of the work something completely different from the very basic brick it's built upon. Exactly like in music too, like in Bach, when you listen to variations, it's not just it's always the same melody at the heart of it. It's like the very simple sets of notes that are repeated and repeated over and over, but with variations, with change in very, very small change that brings the whole work to something that's bigger, more complex, and that's never boring, actually. In conclusion, we see loops in games more and more often, and you had the talk of Oscar just before me, which is a very, very interesting looks at loops and how we use algorithm in games to bring more content, and that's a very interesting thing that's happening nowadays. Why? Because with games, we're able to use algorithm to bring the variations. It's like instead of Queneau doing the variations by himself, we have a way to have the player play through basic infinite of loops. So a lot of games are based on this nowadays. So this is just an example with minutes, with these loops of 60 seconds, which well, after 60 seconds you die and you restart at your precedent point, and each of these variations brings new content and new gameplay experience. So that's very interesting. To finish, maybe, because I really like this game, so Untitled Goose Game. Even if games that are not based on loops are actually looping in a way, it's like they're actually referencing things that already happen, whether they want it or not. So this is Untitled Goose Game. So you got the same mechanic that you had in the Sprinkled or L'Arroseur Arrosé, which is the first comedy made by Frères Lumière in 1885, and you got the same sort of trick in a way, and that's very interesting because we're building on things that already exist. We're always building on things that already exist. Thank you. I don't know if we got time for questions.
Thank you for the talk. I really liked your analogy with the Antarctica trip, because that was a question that I had about getting tired of always working on the same fields, I guess. However, on this subject, so I get that it can be nice to stay on the something that you know, but just push it forward. But at the same time, isn't there like a lot of situations in which, as a creator, you always get new ideas and get its inspiration from stuff that is totally different from what you're working on, and there's no way you can actually find a way to put it into this game because it's very incompatible, and so doesn't it feel frustrating after a while? Just do you entrap yourself this way, maybe?
Yeah, totally. We had a lot of ranks fatigue after ranks Game of Thrones. Like, we were very tired of it. Players too, I think. Well, so that's why we decided to do this thing, basically, which is we still got one ranks project that we keep in the work, basically, and we really like that because we're really good at writing ranks cards and rings things, and I really like exploring new narratives with that thing. At the same time, we got all these other games, and we got lots of them. So when we got a nice concept that it's not a rings game, and we got loads of that, we basically we tried to set up like a parallel development team for that. So now the studio is growing up in that direction, basically. Instead of growing up to 20 to do just one big ranks free-to-play that we sell many times, we recruit. So we recruited Ben who's in the room, a developer. We got an artist. We're probably gonna recruit 2 or 3 more people. And the idea is that we will set up one team to do ranks game and one team to do other games, and they will exchange and start. The idea is not just to do ranks, basically. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, is that it? Another question. Yeah.
Hello. First, thank you. It was very interesting. How did you survive before rain?
We survived because Tamara, my wife, who is also my partner, was working while I was making games, which is an exchange because before I was working and she was studying. It's not true. Okay, I know. Okay, so yeah, she's just supported me, and I was doing consulting on the side for a while, and basically we had a bit of an issue with Devouring Stars. So Devouring Stars is the first project we managed to add a publisher for. Okay, so before that we didn't have any publisher. So we were expecting to start to earn money with Devouring Stars. But they never paid us because they got bankrupt, and that's indie for you, yeah. But about the same month we signed with Devolver for Rings, and that came with money. So that's also supported the studio while we were making Rings. The games before, basically, that's what I tell you. I was doing consulting on the side, and my wife was working. Thank you.
Hello, thank you very much. If you have one advice for indie developers, what is, please?
One advice?
Yes, one advice for young or not young indie developers.
I hope I have got more than one. But, no, just one advice. Learn to finish your games. Okay, that's the main point, really. Whatever the state, don't keep things at reach. Okay, my problem with the first game I showed you, Revolving Sky, is that I didn't know how to finish a game, and that's why I stopped it. It's like I was going nowhere. That's just piling up a lot of systems that would start to crumble because I'm not that good a developer. So the main point, learn how to finish your games. That's like crucial thing to learn. It's like you need to have an end point to your work because I really think that's an important. Except if you're a pure genius who can spend 5 years on a game and I come up with a masterpiece of the universe, you will not manage to do it. Yeah. So, and it's very rare are the people who are able to do that and succeed. Yeah. Is that it? Yeah? Okay, thank you.